Ladies, gentlemen, and Haradrim of all ages, yesterday we had the beginning of the PTR on PC for Diablo 4 Season 7, and there's a fair bit to talk about now that we've gotten our hands on it at least a little bit. First things first, this is going to be funny to some, sad to others, but there was of course a fairly major issue with the entire first day of the PTR. Theoretically, it's going to be fixed sometime in the next few hours after the release of this video. For whatever reason, in contrast to the previous PTR, the one that was held for Season 6, the boost vendor, who lets you get maximum paragon and max level, gives you equipment and resources and such, just started crashing game servers left and right, making the PTR all but unplayable for most people. And of course, the immediate band-aid fix to this came from the devs to simply disable the boost vendor for now. But the expected time to fix this is an entire day, an entire section of our limited PTR testing time, and to be quite clear, without this boost vendor, you simply cannot test high-level seasonal mechanics, because you either have your main account save transfer characters, which count as Eternal Realm, so you can't do seasonal stuff, or you can make brand new seasonal characters. Without the boost, a new seasonal character is of course started at level 1, and so this has pretty much removed a full day of testing for anyone who missed the window to boost a character before all this stuff went down. That said, that isn't the limit of the problems, as anyone who did manage to get to the boost vendor before it was taken down to preserve the servers noticed that there was a very important functionality that was not updated from last season's PTR either, which is that the caches that are created by the boost vendor to give you a bunch of items, a lot of gear of various kinds, still cannot roll as ancestral items. So if you want to, actually have ancestral gear to test out proper endgame builds and actual stats and stuff like that, and actually mess with the proper setups, the only real way to do this is to create fresh characters and boost them over and over to create a bunch of ancestral items until you get ones that have the right stats to actually work from for you. Obviously, this isn't even doable until the boost vendor is interactable once again, but once it is, this will be the next major hurdle that a lot of people will stop at. I don't want to spend all today talking about this, but I want to be clear that the point of the PTR is of course to allow us to test things, to work out either pain points in balance or particular bugged interactions that could be fixable before the season actually releases. And not only is there this first unintended hurdle of basically a full day without character boosting, but even once that is fixed, the actual testing is limited by the tools themselves, not allowing ancestrals. So if the devs want more effective testing from us in the future to improve the quality of future seasons, I would heavily recommend allowing the boost vendor caches to have ancestrals in them. As for the server issues, I can't comment on that too much because I don't know the scope of the issue or what's causing it. All I can say is that losing such a massive chunk of effective test time for the PTR, a whole day, is very unfortunate, especially as this PTR is effectively shorter than most for the game, as a lot of fans of the ARPG genre in general, especially ones on PC, where the PTR for Diablo 4 exists to begin with, are going to be checking out the early access release of Path of Exile 2 on Friday. A lot of these people. All I mean by bringing that up is that the majority of the testing in this PTR was always going to be done before Friday, just because of the way that these timelines are. And now we've lost a big chunk of that time already right out of the get-go, so that's very unfortunate. All that said, I did manage to boost a character myself, and while my gear was absolutely garbage and piecemeal and I couldn't really fix it because again the boost vendor was down, it did allow me to check out some of the new seasonal mechanics at the very least. I checked out the actual Witchcraft powers, all of the occult gems in action too. I made a very basic build to take advantage of the new ultimate skill boost just to mess around with in low Torment with my crappy gear. Then I went out to try the new subzone takeover event to find myself honestly pleasantly surprised by it. I thought this was just going to be like slightly harder Whispers of the Dead, like the exact same activities but with higher numbers or something like that, but they are entirely new objectives for the most part. They are different activities. There are some where you follow an NPC around and basically go on patrol with them to take care of the sort of rotten fiends, some where you save NPCs that are tangled up in roots, some where you need to cleanse a totem by killing a load of enemies in a pretty large circle around it. It's essentially just a couple of handfuls of new little mini events packaged as unique Whispers of the Dead Grim Favor events within these subzones for this while they are active. Within this, as Grim Favors are collected by people in the zone, Twisted Root interactables will show up as well, and you can interact with these for various effects. It almost always spawns enemies, but sometimes it'll pop open for a big pile of loot, sometimes it'll just spawn way more enemies than normal, and sometimes you'll get a proper boss event spawning from it too, which notifies players nearby and will either spawn a headless boss or the real prize, a fugitive head boss, after a fair amount of waves of just regular enemies too. It's essentially like an alternate version of the Blood Maiden event in Helltide. It's all sort of repackaged mechanics, sure, but it did feel fresh to actually play and go through and do it for a while. The Tangled Root interactables almost felt like little loot boxes that you got to open for interacting with the subzone activity, which was honestly pretty fun. As for the Witchcraft, I wasn't able to do a massive amount of leveling for the powers powers, but the main notes that I want to make are the unique powers seem to be one of each type and then the Piranado, and can only be upgraded to level 5, as well as costing far more of the currency to upgrade them than the other Witchcraft powers as well, which can hit higher levels. The occult gems are going to be much harder to get in high quantity than the Witchcraft powers are, but with everything running, it did feel relatively strong, with my starting setup being a poison Piranado build with Wave of Woe, echoing shadow damage from my skills, then having that turned into poison damage instead with a different Witchcraft power doing damage over time, as well as increasing my main stat load from the others I had too. Altogether, it was feeling like you could create some really fun sort of combos and strong synergies with these powers, further accented by the occult gem system too, which both essentially adds restrictions for your Witchcraft powers by some of them only functioning depending on what you have equipped, but offering some strong rewards if you're willing to work around them as well. As of this immediate moment, due to the boosting vendor problems on the PTR, we haven't been able to do things like properly test new items or new builds in a proper environment, but all of the actual seasonal new additions that I've tried out so far do feel genuinely good to me. So aside from the really rocky start with the boost vendor issues and the unfortunate timing of all this stuff, I do think that the PTR, as we've seen it so far, does bode well for Season 7's actual proper release in January. So even if things do change as far as balance, as long as the spirit of these seasonal bits of power stick around, it should be an enjoyable season for most of the people who actually give it a shot. At least that's my opinion. That just about does it for today then, everyone. Just a roundup of what's been going on with the first day of the PTR for Diablo 4 Season 7 and how it affects my expectations moving forwards. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and feel free to leave any thoughts down in the comments below. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.